Thank you ever so much, Tim. We are, of course, ready to jump into this one. The players are not messing around today, getting themselves straight into the lobby. The game is loaded, and we have already seen 2 bans. We've seen a Thatcher disappear, and we have seen a Nomad disappear as well.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of interested to see the Nomad because, of course, she's vitally important in being able to control the flanks that can be made. And I think that will be incredibly important, especially going up against a team like Ninjas in Pyjamas, who will be very adept at those kinds of decision-making, those kinds of movements. Aruni gone as well. She's great at holding down sites, and of course Mira for the same reason. So I think this is an interesting banning phase, but makes a lot of sense. There's nothing I look at and I'm like, ooh, that's interesting one there. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I really like the bans. I think they're great. Nomad, arguably a must ban, and if it's not a must ban, it should be a must pick.
Yep.
Aruni, we've already seen just how powerful Aruni and the laser gates can be. Mirror, it's Oregon, let's be real. Thatcher, great ban as well. Santos, starting out here on the attack.
This is the basement.
It could be a difficult task for him.
Yes, this is going to be a tall task to go up against. So heading down into the basement. And one of the things that we've spoken about today is the fact that on attack, you do require more of a coordinated push, I think. Attack requires more coordination than defense does, is a general idea. Obviously, don't quote me on that because it does come down to the very specifics. But you need that solid understanding of what each other is doing. And when you are this new roster and you're still, you know, meshing, you're still gelling, you're still figuring each other out, and you're going up against one of the most celebrated and venerated teams in Rainbow Six history, yeah, I'd say that sounds a bit hard.
We'll have to see how Santos rise to the challenge here. The lineup, fairly par for the course. We've got the double hard breach and the ace and the maverick, so shouldn't really be struggling to get anything open. Already we're seeing quite an aggressive stance from these attackers as well, as already got Ash pushing all the way on in, pre-firing as they go. Pino retreating down the freezer stairs for now, but make no mistake, he could be ready to pounce. Nomad being banned and no real flank protection being brought on the side of Santos means that they are going to be heavily reliant on pre-placing their drones.
Well, all of those players from NIP, I believe, are downstairs. Yeah, you can see all 5 of them down there. So there's not going to be any real substantial roam clear needing to be done. Instead, it'll be about fighting these players on the site itself or down in the basement. Already opening up the freezer hatch, so that'll be work done. And Pino is positioned in there, so he's going to be potentially pressured. But I'd imagine the Santos will make moves to move on over and get open, particularly the meeting hatch if they can.
Moosey's playing quite aggressively here, really. Typically, you see that shield much further back, closer toward the elbow and the wall that can be reinforced or unreinforced, left with a pocket reinforcement to try and get that off and, you know, waste a little bit of time in that corner and then retreat. But instead, playing it quite aggressive with the Goyo shield. Sure, there are some Wamai discs on there, but it does seem as though a potential opportunity for Santos to try and take a hold of. So far, we've seen nearly 2 minutes of action, and all we've really had is one meeting hatch be open, which isn't ideal, especially seeing as there is no sort of electrification or anything blocking it. Going to leave Santos slightly short on time, as solid angles are already being held by the players of NIP in the site.
A lot of these shields are going to have to be dealt with as well, as they have brought a Goyo, one of which is positioned very aggressively to protect Muzi. The other one is over towards Laundry as well, in the little closet, so that they can watch out for anyone that could be coming forward from the Laundry side. But it looks like there is a blue push here. Muzi's still behind the safety of his shield. He's going to get flashed and stunned out. Moves back to shield number 2. And so you can see that they are really hunkering down on this one, but Santos start to push in. There's the nade, and Muzi's going to have to retreat.
Still plenty of time for NIP to burn here, as there are 15 seconds as the kills continue to trade. Conda's got himself all the way on inside and is going to find a second and look to try and plant that diffuser. A lot of these kills, importantly, have gone in the direction of Santos and Psycho. He's got nowhere to go. Every crossfire conceivable is being watched, and Santos have just pulled off a heist.
Yeah, they did very well towards the end there, being coordinated in the way they pushed in, really trapping NIP with a lot of the angles that they were holding. And I do wonder if maybe NIP had relinquished some of that blue control a bit earlier and been a bit quicker to move back to the site, not held so aggressively and so risky. Maybe they would have had more strength in numbers later on, but I don't know, you can never really truly tell if that's going to be something that would have made a huge difference. Either way, yeah, and there you go, you can see that is the point at which Muzi did have to move back, and he still got a kill. But then Santos came in and got a few for themselves as well. Either way, NIP have decided that it is in their interest to go back down to Laundry. They're heading back down to the basement, but they're bringing a different defensive setup. And instead of holding quite so far forward and aggressively using those, well, especially the Goyo shields particularly, they've kind of brought in this lineup that's going to prevent pushes from being as effective. Mostly looking at the Capcan, who can place the booby traps, and the Alibi, which means that behind the shields, or in whichever places they would like, they can place those the holograms, and that will give them information on the location of the Santos players.
I think I like the removing the Goyo out of the equation, as those Goyo shields were quite aggressive, and although the places that the Goyo shields were held, it just really was a little bit too far up, and I think that NIP maybe lost a bit too much control of the site whilst those defenders were trying to rotate back, and the fact that they were able to hold that extended position really mattered not. They're still going to be extended and they're still going to be playing aggressive, but instead this time they're going to be playing aggressive in and around the meeting area, and they've even got the meeting hatch left open as well, just to give the players a nice easy way of getting themselves back down onto site, and instead they're going to hold aggressively from kitchen side. Now Destiny is read into that, and he's going to get a hell of a lot of chip damage over onto Muzi. Muzi is now less than half. The question is, how's the drone work being done? Does Destiny know that there is also Julio on the Malusi playing inside of kitchen?
Oh, Julio is actually going to be retreating back toward... He jumped straight down the hatch, actually. So this is the point at which NIP have said, right, we want to go back downstairs, back to the basement. But does Santos know that? Ooh, that is a lot of health down to death that Pino receives. And STK just looking back down the freezer stairs. There's another player down there as well. I think that also might be Julio. But for now, all he needs to do is hold the angle. Point is, Santos have been quite effective in not only forcing NIP to retreat to site earlier than would normally be for a roam like this, but they've also removed one of their key players as well.
Yeah, losing out on the shotgun, losing out on the C4, it is never a good thing. Kamikaze left to try and hold the angle in through freezer, but the shield already seeing pre-fire shots onto it. Let him know that that's probably not the safest place to be right now. Psycho, he's on quite the roam. He's upstairs inside of attic. Does have a C4 and has got an option to maybe get himself down into a meeting, if he would like, but instead he's just going to dodge the pre-placed drones and try and make his way quietly to effect on this flank. See some success, but he's going to have to act quickly and get himself back down there without being seen. Meanwhile, the kills are continuing to flood for Santos. There's another one that flies on in from Rise on the nade. Now Psycho should at least find one there. Ooh, just by the skin of his teeth, does manage it, but Conda has also taken out Julio, so Psycho really has to fight his way back into the site tooth and nail, but Muzi, he's backing him up. The kill comes in onto Muzi, however, rendering it a 1 versus 2, and Psycho now is upstairs. The diffuser is cold and there is a little bit of time for him to play with. Doesn't seem as though there's a threat of a plant imminently, as the diffuser has now only been recovered, and already Psycho's managed to position himself into the freezer. What a position he's found. He misses out narrowly on the headshot. It looks as though the plant will start to stick. He does have this C4. This is where it's going to come in huge. Can he hit it? No, he can't. He gets shot out midair. Time's ticking down for him. He's still got a chance of winning this one. All he's got to do is aggressively push on in, and it is as easy as that. Finds the first, confirms the second. Ninjas in Pyjamas respond with round number 2.
Really good control there from Psycho, showing that despite the fact that NIP were at a disadvantage for a lot of that, he could still come back and swing the round in their favor. And I think we can't take away from the fact that Santos, once again, had a really thorough clear. The point is they didn't necessarily know where Psycho was. We spoke about how he dodged those pre-placed drones. He was creeping around upstairs. There was really no reason for Santos to assume that he was still out and about. So when he actually started to move down those main stairs and come towards Laundry and begin getting those kills, he was taking a lot of those players by surprise. Once we got to the end, they clearly knew that he was there. They were aware of his presence, and they knew they had to go in for the plant because time was running out. But at that point, you're still in, you know, a 1 versus 2 against Psycho, and it's Psycho, right? So that alone put NIP in a position where it was feasible. He didn't necessarily have the advantage, but it was feasible. And Santos didn't have a choice but to try and plant because time was literally that low.
Santos are going to kick themselves there for leaving that diffuser upstairs inside of the main lobby. That was a real dropping the ball, you know, dropping the diffuser, dropping the ball, whatever you want to call it. That was a moment where the round was lost for them, because then they put themselves into just a 2 versus 1, which when the time is at 0-0-0, it doesn't matter if it's 5 versus 1. All you got to do is kill the person that's planting the diffuser and you win the round. And that's exactly what we saw happen. The 2 versus 1 in that situation is essentially a 1v1. And all of a sudden the round is going over to NIP. They have the momentum, and already they are picking out kills. Pino on the aggressive. He's going to be pushing all the way up through Showers hallway. He's going to get droned out. Is the swing going to come? Potentially. He hasn't got a full clip of ammo, but just going to play good trigger discipline there and pre-fire as he goes. Has been traded back in the meantime, and Psycho, the superstar of the last round, has been taken out along with Muzi. It's even more important now that Pino makes something happen from inside of this position, because if he goes as well, it's going to be game over. And he does. He gets taken down there by the Ash. Julio, he returns to try and make something happen. Not sure if anyone knows he is there. Misses the narrow shots on the peak, but the pre-fires from Santos are just too good.
Look at this already. Once again, NOP are back down to just 1 player going up against 4, and we're at about the 2-minute mark. Julio's really lacking on health as well. The best he can do right now is just try and hold the hatch, but Santos most likely know that there is a chance he is up there. After all, it is a pretty standard part of the map to try and clear out when you're attacking onto this site. It's just holding on to these angles as the attacking players begin to rappel upwards, having to move upstairs. They just have plenty of time to play with, though. That's the difference.
Attackers have got all the time in the world. They've got all of the drones that they could need. They are going against Julio. Now, what an interesting decision. Dropping the hatch. You might ask yourself why. Well, he's likely going to give away that site control because he just can't physically hold every conceivable angle. It's much better in this situation to try and retake and go for a hell of a highlight reel clip. The plant is going to get confirmed. That's going to not only put the pressure on him, but means that he now needs to retake. Finds the first. Everyone knows now where he is. Goes for the little peek, but a slew of utility comes in from these attackers, and it is only a matter of time. Santos are going to lock in at round number 3. Julio's fanciful attempt at a retake with no health wasn't realised.
One thing I have to say that I really like about the way that Santos are playing is it's very objective focused. And they're probably the first team that we've seen today that are demonstrating this to this extent. Every single round so far, and admittedly there have only been 3, they have at the very least attempted a plant. This was the first round where it actually worked and it went through. But it's very interesting. I think that really also influences the way that they play as well. And that's why them dropping the diffuser as well was such a big problem in that previous round that you spoke about before too. So it's interesting because they have this quite calculated, albeit aggressive way of approaching the early half of the round, and that is how NIP are being just decimated so quickly, and then they will play very objective focused.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's nice to see. We've seen the diffuser at least be attempted and go down more times than we have done throughout the whole evening in these first 3 rounds compared to any other 3. We're also seeing rounds come on the attack, and we're on Oregon. We don't really expect rounds to come on the attack here, but Santos, they've already got themselves into that favourable position, the mythical 4-2 split that you would expect on Oregon as an attacker. They've already achieved that inside of the first 3. Now, there's all the possibility in the world that they're able to continue to pick up some rounds here, because so far NIP, they're really getting caught quite short. A comment I'd like to make, particularly on that last round, is the sheer lack of trades coming through from NIP.
Yeah, it's quite disappointing actually to see, because NIP, you think about them, you think about their accolades, everything they've achieved. I mean, even looking back at 2020, obviously they came 2nd in SI, they came 2nd in Pro League Season 11, 1st in the August Major, 2nd in the regular season, 3rd in the November Major, 3rd to 4th in finals. There wasn't a single event that they were not a part of because they didn't qualify. They qualified for all of them and they did great in all of them as well. So you think about a team like that and you wonder why it is they are struggling. And trades, absolutely, one of those things. Part of me wonders if maybe it's just not giving enough respect to their opponents, but they don't look like they're playing disrespectfully. They just look like they're cutting corners.
Psycho's got some really nice information there on the drone. Just whether he's going to be able to get himself or one of his teammates in a position to use it. It's got a Valkyrie camera placed down inside a kitchen, and it's got a nice angle over onto the Ash. Just something that NIP are now able to work with. It gives them one answer as to where are these players pushing in from. And for all intents and purposes, this has been a much slower round. We're getting back to what we saw in, maybe round 1, where the first kill came in at the 25-second mark. We're already halfway in, and there's not really been any shots fired in anger. I think Hunter's seen a bit of damage, but I'm unsure as to where that has come from. The Santos are really taking the time with this one.
Ooh.
I say that. Muzi comes in. Muzi says, you know what? I want to have a look at this. It's been a while. Let's kick the kills off. We're going to take the first one for NIP.
One thing that I do really like about the way that NIP are playing is they lose a round and they completely overhaul their defensive strategy. The last time they came to the Kid Storm's defensive site, they were playing very much downstairs. They were so heavily off-site. Psycho's not playing anything as Hunter gets a nice frag grenade onto him, and now Santos can start to push up the white stairs. Con's already going in for the plant, but are they going to be able to cover him? In goes a C4 from Kamikaze, but it misses. Con's once again starting off with the plant. There's 2 C4s though. NIP just coming straight in with the projectiles. Now Hunter's grabbed the diffuser and he's going to have to try again, but they are outnumbered up against a pretty scary defense, and NIP save themselves yet another round.
NIP are going to level it back there to 2 apiece. Santos just getting scared off the plant, or should I say Hunter for Santos there, just getting scared off the plant with the threat of the C4, and as he restuck it, well, the C4s continued to fall. It all goes down to how much information NIP had. Valkyrie has been allowed in. It's an operator that we know NIP like to play. They love that information, Julio in particular. So being able to have that intel on that operator and then be able to make your C4s work off the back of it, something that they really, really put to show in that round. It's now meant that they can go back downstairs to basement and give it another shot down here as they've once again leveled things up.
And this actually continues off the point that I was making, and that is that NIP changed their defensive strategy every single time that it hasn't worked out for them. They went from doing the very heavy offside, the very heavy roam, to going back to being more site focused, and both times they've done that now, it has worked out for them. So NIP, now that they are returning to a site, which they have already been to, I'm wondering which of the 2 types of defenses we saw are they more going to lean into. I mean, look at this. They've already reinforced in meeting, which suggests to me that, potentially there's going to be some play off-site, maybe upstairs. They have the right operators for it. They've got they've got the Malusi, they have the Alibi, and they have the Mozzie. Those are typically operators that you'll see roaming. But NIP did better on the round where they weren't doing that.
Looks as though Santos are going to go for a big tower clear. isn't something I believe we've seen them do as of yet, but maybe reading into this kind of extended roam from NIP, it is a bit different to what we've seen them do previously. There are the alibis placed inside a meeting, which we did see the previous time. Meeting this time has been left soft, able to be rotated through, and we do have Psycho playing just the other side of there. It looks as though Santos have made a decision and they've flipped the switch and said, you know what, if there's going to be people off-site, let's just push onto the site. If there's someone all the way up on that top floor and somebody up inside a meeting, maybe, just maybe, we can look to pressure elsewhere.
Putting down those claymores as well should deter or kill any of the defenders who may try to make that rotation if they get wind of what Santos are doing. Destiny knows that there's a player not too far away. There's one still upstairs, but it looks like 3 of the others are downstairs, and there is still another one on this same floor. So they just want to be sure that they're safe as they start to shoot in. But I suspect that they'll be facing up against a much more hefty defense as they push in, and not quite... Ooh! That's a really nice C4. Cons wasn't expecting that one, and Julio straight away has removed the hard breach from Santos.
Maybe a bit of a tough task now, as you would expect to try and get those ace charges used, but as it stands, as though, in fact, it looks as though a couple of them were placed just before he died, and maybe some utility was preventing them from being activated, but as it stands, drones are flooding on into the site. There's around a minute remaining. The diffuser's cold on the ground, but that's not too much of a concern for Santos at the moment. Once again, a big concern should be Psycho, really taking advantage of no flank watch, but this time Destiny is the human flank watcher saying, you know what, guys, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch that myself, and he's waving his arms. He's pretty pleased with that one. He is predicting what Psycho is going to do. Toxic Babe canister has been burnt there as a huge portion of damage has been seen as Ash looks to push on through, but that's the diffuser cold in the middle of the bomb site now. Rise is looking to try and make something happen. There's a lot of players for the side of NIP inside of the freezer at the moment, and they're making it work. Muzi with 2 kills. In fact, call it Muzi with 3 kills as he picks up all of the final players on Santos and shuts shop from freezer.
That was really nice positioning from NIP at the end there, because we saw it with STK as well. He tries to move into the side after opening up the soft wall by Pillar, and straight away he's caught out in a crossfire that he didn't seem to expect to be there. And at that point, Santos is significantly weakened. They know they can't cross the site either. A really difficult position to be in, and Muzi just went on fire to clear up everyone they needed. And this is the first time that Ninjas in Pyjamas have actually had a lead in this game.
It's looking more and more likely that it could be the fabled 4-2 split for Santos. This round will, of course, be the deciding factor for that. NIP have looked fairly inconsistent up until this point, relying on big, impactful plays from people like Psycho on a flank, or in that instance, Muzi from the site. It's been relatively hit or miss, and Santos, I think, potentially have been the more consistent as a team, certainly in terms of their focus in getting that diffuser down, but that's something NIP have begun to read into. And I'm sure that we're going to see plenty of vertical action once again. You've only got to look toward the left-hand side of your screen, just at the top there on the blue bar, 3 C4s in play. Last time we saw this site, we saw, I think, at least 3 C4 kills. Now, one of them was a double, but still, it just goes to show the value of those pieces of utility and what these players on NIP can make them do.
Now, this is an interesting one because I'm pretty sure they're playing in Meeting now, which is not a site that we're used to seeing that much in competitive Rainbow Six over in Europe, or even really that much in North America either. Typically, the dining site is preferred over Meeting. Now, given how NIP have found their successes, I'm going to assume that they will also have some off-site play again as well. Probably some vertical control too, because of how open Meeting, for example, is. and how you can you want to be attacking from that side. That is something the Santos have struggled with when it has worked for NIP, is because of not being able to use a Nomad, for example. The flank watch is incredibly limited. And there you go, already they spot the shield up in attic, so they know that there are going to be players up there. There's going to be some kind of setup. There is, once again, the soft attic wall for the rotates.
Santos certainly taking the time with this one. It seems as though in this game in particular, we've either seen early action or we've seen action after that last minute has ticked off the clock and we're into the only seconds that remain. 59 seconds and less seems to be when the action kicks off if we have a slower start, and seemingly to be the case in this round. NIP not really looking to move all too much. Some nice angles being held and some good patience being shown. Psycho going to get caught out on the nade, takes a lot of damage, but really didn't really have much of an option. He couldn't rotate anywhere, otherwise he would have died. 2 kills fly in for Destiny as he greets the team with a double. Psycho in an important spot now, having to rotate because his team need him on the site. Muzi continuing his good form from the last round and finding a kill in return, but the question is it going to be enough? Santos, they've flooded. One of them has found a kill and the other, well, STK, he has found Muzi. Psycho got the kill over onto Hunter to try and level things up, but once again playing the vertical while Pino is on the same floor as the site. The diffuser's going down. He narrowly misses but screws up the C4 toss. That's such a shame. The plans will now be confirmed. Psycho looking to try and make something happen as he's dropped down onto the same level, but Destiny is on a tear. He's picked up 3. Can he get the final one? No. STK can though. Not only does he get the plants as the Ash, he gets the kills as well.
Really difficult round there for NIP, and I think a lot of the strength and the power they needed was that lateral. I mean, Muzi was in a really difficult position as well. He was playing in the meeting hall, but he knew that there was a player in meeting as well as in kitchen as well, and making the decision to commit to go down into kitchen, well, what caused his death ultimately was that he didn't see exactly the position of the player in kitchen, and he lost that gunfight, but he knew there was still the risk of being flanked around as well, and that's what made it so difficult. There wasn't a lot of success in their vertical holds either, and once Pino actually messed up the C4 at the end there, you could see them trying to use the vertical holes as that kind of last resort, but nothing came of it. And Santos, and especially Destiny, really showed up in that round, and I think Destiny just... It was great as well because Cons has been kind of carrying the baton for, you know, kills. He was playing hard support. But the fact that Destiny could pick that up and make up for the fact that Cons was taken out very early in that round was really good. But now, obviously, things have switched around. We're at a 3-3 split, which isn't the end of the world for Oregon, I would say. You said before, you're looking for that 4-2 at the very least. But 3-3, not the end of the world. And Santos are potentially on a more favorable side now. And I'm interested to see how they're going to approach this as well, because straight up, they've brought a different kind of defensive setup to anything that we saw from NIP.
I've brought the man with the glasses.
And the penguin
run.
run.
Our very own secret agent Warden has been brought. I'm always a little bit skeptical of a Warden pick. I think the advantages are that, yes, you do get the shield, which is nice, but there are other people that you can bring to get that shield on. The weapon is okay, but it isn't, you know, anything really to write home about. So I'd like to see where it's played, purely for the fact that they've doubled down on both Wamai and Jaeger as well. So they're either expecting sort of Hellfire and Fury to come at them in terms of throwables from NIP, or it potentially is a comfort pick as well.
I mean, I would expect Hellfire and Fury because, look, they've got a Yana, they've got a Maverick, that's already 4 frags in hand, and because they're clearly expecting smokes to be used as well, that could also be a huge hindrance for them. So you have the Warden who can, you know, obviously help against that if the smokes do make it through, but you also, the smokers have got to get past the Wamai discs and the ADS in the first place. So the point here is there's very little to burn those out because only Buck on the attacking side is carrying flashes. Ash doesn't have flashes anymore. Buck, with his 3 flashes, is not going to be able to deal with every single piece of utility or anti-projectile utility that Santos have.
Hatch has been opened there into Freezer, and just going to be holding an angle relatively passively for the time being, waiting for his team to get themselves into position. There are players for Santos in and around that Freezer corridor area just before Freezer door. Angles above are being made, and it looks as though Wamai discs are attempted to be burnt. Pino could be getting himself set up for a nade toss here as well. He uses his gadget just to try and burn out onto that utility as well. Goes for the nade toss. Does get caught inside of the ADS though. Just got an audio signal onto that one. Goes for the nade toss deep, but it's unlikely to hit anyone. Goes for the swing, and the bullets do the job. Gets swung a second time and really finds himself in a tough one. Muzi comes in as well, and how does Pino get that kill? He doesn't kill Muzi, he kills the enemy. Muzi gets a kill of his own. That would have ended a whole different way with lesser skill in those guys' hands, but NIP are making this look like a cakewalk. Julio finds Rise, and Hunter, last man standing on pillar, albeit not a great deal of time left, and he's got only one real angle to hold to try and cut down a large portion of the NIP forces. Diffuser will be starting to get planted now by Kamikaze as a rotation is made, but Julio is in the right place at the right time. The first flawless round that we have seen so far tonight goes to NIP.
Yeah, they made that look pretty easy. Yeah. I think this is where you actually start to see that thing that I kind of alluded to in the pregame, which was the differences in the attacking rounds. And that's where you'll see the differences in the experience and the synergy and the coordination of these two teams. And I think this could be where NIP actually start to run away with that. One of the strong spots that Santos actually had in that round, it was when Pino was pushing down into Freezer, and they had angles on him through the Freezer door, but also through the soft wall into Laundry. However, it was when Muzi ran down to join him as well. Despite the fact that Muzi didn't get the kill that was required to give them the space they needed, the fact there were two of them gave them more power in that position, and it meant that those crossfires were less threatening. And it was the gateway they needed to take control of Freezer and that entire part of the map. And once you're left with just Hunter at the end, I mean, you're one guy. There's only so much you can do in that situation. So it's just little things like that. Understanding how to swing a potentially threatening situation into you being the threat.
Upstairs we go. It seems as though Santos fancy any of Laundry again after suffering flawless defeat down there. I'm sure NIP aren't going to be too bothered, as it looked very good on their attacking phase. The information exchange and the drone work was really good. Pino got himself into a nice position for a couple of nades, all assisted by his teammates and the people that were pushing on ahead of him and burning out that utility. We did have a little bit of a question mark as to whether there was enough to get through everything. I mean, this time there's almost certainly going to be enough, because Santos, they've only got one thing. They've only got the Jaeger ADS devices to try and deny a lot of those throwables, and that seemed like such a pivotal part of NIP's push previously. Psycho, I see quite a bit of damage from tier 3. It's as though STK are going to just make a rotation out of there. The attic has already been fully reinforced, so he's forced to make a long one. Take the long way around through the basement.
That was great. I like these angles that Rise is holding as well, from kids, or dormitorio infantil. As you can tell, I have a great Portuguese accent. It's patience as well being exhibited here from Santos, and the fact that NIP have had to spend the time doing the rotate as well, I think works in Santos's favor. Of course, they are going to have to actually start bringing down some of those players, and as I say that, Psycho takes another hefty chunk of damage, but STK himself has been down as well. There's a nice nade from Pino, as you said, not going to be inhibited by any discs. The Wamai not present, and once again, Santos still just trying to look through the vertical holes, but Kamikaze coming in too. This is looking more dangerous for Santos. Destiny's going on a roam. He actually knows there might be a player nearby. There's the drone, and it's being watched as well. They know exactly where he is, and he gets taken down very swiftly. A C4 in hand for Cons, as he's left with just Hunter to go up against 4 members of NIP. Waiting for them to actually move on up to the site, which they are still yet to do. But look at this, Ollie. There is still basically a minute remaining. NIP are feeling very comfortable.
There's a minute, there's 5 drones. There is a lot of opportunity here for NIP. And they're going to make it a bit easier for themselves and start to pressure on the vertical. Psycho downstairs, just making use of the skeleton key and making it really awkward, basically, for any defender on Santos to be stood inside of dormitories. That's going to force them to make mistakes and force them to move into the waiting arms of players like Julio or Kamikaze. Now, Kamikaze at the top of double window. I think we've got Julio over inside of Armory side as well, making his way on up there now. Really looking for this pinch. 15 seconds left. Hunter finds a kill. It's a big one. It's an important one, but he's going to get taken down in a 1-for-1 trade. 3 versus 1 now. Conda's got a lot of work to do and only an SMG-11 and a shotgun to do it with. Finds the first. Can he grab the second? He's looking the wrong way. The vertical pressure continuing to come up from Psycho. And NIP are looking dominant here on attack.
Such a mess at the end there, though, and I have to really commend the fact that Santos gave it their all. They did give it a good go, but again, just overwhelmed by NIP, especially from those different angles, the different directions. When you have such a man advantage, you do have the freedom to be able to keep one guy downstairs so he can utilize those vertical holes, as well as having others push in laterally. And that's something that is always going to be incredibly overwhelming to you as a defender. Just on the replays, you can see that flank drone that was present in the kitchen, and he didn't even shoot it. You could see it was being watched as well. It was just really nice drone placement there from NIP. Just meant they had control despite the fact that Santos were trying to implement this roam.
Santos just coming up short here in a couple of these rounds, and NIP really starting to take an advantage and a lead here on Oregon. 5-3 as the score currently sits. Back downstairs this time to Laundry. The Santos are yet to find a defensive win on Oregon. They did well on their attacks. They managed to get 3 wins. Since moving on to that defensive side, they have struggled dearly. Previously, when we were seeing this site, we saw NIP pushing quite heavily from the freezer side. There was a lot of focus on burning utility and a lot of focus on getting through those WAMI discs. Now, Santos, for the last couple of rounds, have avoided WAMI altogether, and they're only relying on the Jaeger. Now, I fear that that is going to make the job even easier for NIP to achieve that push through the freezer.
What I very much fear for Santos here is that NIP have decided that they don't actually need the buck, so they haven't brought any flashes whatsoever. So that's going to be something to bear in mind for those ADSs, but they have brought the Zero, and he's got those Argus cams, which added onto their good drone use anyway is really going to make that quite oppressive against Santos, especially while they are running this kind of roam, as you can tell by NIP going upstairs. But Muzi will be the first casualty. Destiny once again showing up, and he doesn't take long before he decides to retreat back downstairs closer to the site. There's still, I think, 3 players off site, however, which NIP are going to be looking to clear. No, I was going to say, but they are going downstairs, but they're still on that first floor.
They're in that dangerous headspace, Gio, where they're kind of on the way back down to site, but they're just like, I'm just going to have a look here first. And that's just such a dangerous position to be. It's real curiosity killed the cat sort of stuff, because all of a sudden you just get embroiled and distracted in watching an angle, and the next minute you've got Psycho swinging the corner onto you. So I do hope that the players on Santos manage to find somewhere that works for them, but at the moment they can afford to play a little bit looser. They do have a bit of an advantage, albeit their hit points aren't looking great on a couple of them, but then again, neither is Julio. There's a lot of work left to do for NIP here. They've got all the map control that they need, but they do need to start opening up some of these hatches.
Oh, there you go. That's exactly what's going to be happening. The freezer hatch being left soft. I'd imagine probably because that would have made it possible for the defenders to just impact that if they had to use it to rotate back down. In goes a nade. Won't find any people, but I suspect there was probably a shield down there somewhere, maybe. Oh, actually, I say that and no shields were brought. So there wasn't a shield. Maybe it cleared some utility. Either way, no one is dead, but now they are. Destiny's going to be killed by Pino quite relentlessly. Nearly gets a headshot on a second, but it'll be Julio who clears up that next player. We're on a 4 versus 3 at this point, and the nades just keep getting thrown on in. And once again, it's deja vu as NIP taking control of freezer. There is going to be some coming back, though. Huntier and STK get kills for themselves. We're in a 2 versus 3. Time is running out as well. And it's looking like it could swing in the way of Santos, too. It's just Kamikaze on his own, and he's being trapped in the freezer here. They know exactly where he is, and he knows there's a player on the stairs. He can't get in 7 seconds. There's absolutely no way. All he can try and do is get an exit frag, but right under the hatch. He is so vulnerable, and Santos put another round on the board.
Santos there with the fight back. It really seemed like the Pinot show coming out of that freezer area, but they found angles of their own. They found that reverse, and they were able to get those narrow headshots that we've been seeing come oh so easily for NIP. Well, Santos found a few of their own in that round, and it really was a big difference maker. It didn't matter at the lack of, you know, gadgets or magnets or ADSs or whatever it might have been. It was all about gun skill, and it was all about the frags. And I think, you know, Santos there messing around, maybe 6-picking onto the Wamai. They didn't do too badly not having it then.
No, it didn't turn out to be a huge problem. And I think also the fact that they were being a bit more disciplined in terms of when they decided to make the rotations back down onto the site, it also gave them those opportunities to move back up and rotate upstairs again. Partly because NIP took quite a long time to do their own clear, which meant that by the time they moved into freezer, they didn't have much time to, you know, go back on that. They couldn't do anything about it. But also, it was exhibited that NIP were going to go for the same take that they did previously, so Santos knew what to expect. So the best thing to do for them at that point was to allow NIP to make their commute into that part of the map, and then they had the first floor free to themselves once again to send that rotate back up. And that, of course, is how Kamikaze died at the end, because they had the hold onto the hatch, as well as the freezer stairs, as well as from within the site. And that's a lot of control to have as a defender. But now, Santos moving over into dining and kitchen. This is the site that I said that we are more likely to see over meeting, and yet MIP decided to go slightly unorthodox in that. Just starting off by opening up all of the areas that they can. So that means the office floor, and they'll be looking to move onto the walls as well.
Can't believe how freely they've been given office there. There's been very little resistance aside from either a pre-placed C4 or just a C4 getting thrown on up from Santos. And all of a sudden, entire control has been gained of that office area, and they can look to start working the vertical there, opening up the floor with the book, continuing to get these walls open as well with the cover that can be provided from up there. Seems like maybe a little bit of an oversight here from Santos as they continue to drop like flies. Pino manages to find one onto Hunter. Showers is almost certainly going to get opened shortly. Destiny unlikely to be revived here, as Rise is maybe going to look for it, but it just seems like such bait at this point to go for that revive. And Nade gets tossed through to confirm it, and the question is no longer in Rise's mind. All he's got to worry about now is finding a couple of kills for himself, because he is the last man standing. 4 versus 1. Poor old Rise, an SMG-11 and a shotgun to try and make it happen. Over a minute on the clock. Muzi with the diffuser firmly in his hand. Almost definitely going to start getting that plant down and start to reverse that pressure. A swing from Rise comes, and his questions have been answered. He goes for a very ambitious shot there, but Pino picks his second up from the bus through the white window and finishes the round for NIP.
I mean, Rise was just at such a massive disadvantage trying to do that with the SMG-11 in retaliation. He knew the angle was being held. Very, very little that he'd have been able to do. I mean, maybe rotate upstairs, or maybe rotate back around and through like meeting, coming through kitchen. The point is, there's not really anything that you can do if you're Rise in that situation, and Santos would have been very much aware of that. But what it does mean is Ninjas and Pyjamas are now on match point, and so far this is quite a this is a lot closer than we saw last game that we casted here today, and probably a lot closer that many people expected these two teams to go. I know I myself felt that way. I thought that Santos would have a much harder time here against NIP, but they've actually shown up quite a bit.
I'm pleasantly surprised, I think, Gio, by the scoreline.
Yeah.
And I'm pleasantly surprised about where the rounds have come from as well. Because Santos haven't done fantastically on their defensive phase. They've only won 1 round. What they did manage to do was get 3 rounds on the attack, which I feel like is quite the feat on Oregon against a team like NIP when there is no Nomad in play. And we've just seen what sort of, capability some of the players, particularly Psycho. We had a couple of really iconic flanks in this game earlier in the defensive phase. So I'm really just quite, pleased with where the rounds from Santos have come from. But NIP have just looked a little bit too good, a little bit too coordinated. That last round in particular just looked like they were taking full advantage of a bit of lackluster setup on the side of Santos, as they just had an answer very quickly for what they'd managed to set up. And take ourselves up to this top floor now into the dorms. Already we're seeing quick movements and quick drone work and quick headshots from Muzi, as he had a bit of information ahead of him and managed to thread the eye of the needle.
Going to be opening up the soft wall, but you can see the 2 of them are still being led on by that drone. He can safely remove some of the utility from that angle that he's just opened without having to risk anyone on the stairs or further down to Zulu being a threat to him, or I suppose if anyone is in security too. So once again, it's just a testament to the fact that NIP are being pretty thorough with what they want to do. And there you go, mute at the top of the stairs. They know that that's going to be a problem. That's going to be something they have to deal with. One thing I do have to say though is NIP have lost a ton of drones. They only have 3 remaining and we're just under the 2-minute mark. This is not a situation you want to be in because they haven't even entered the site yet. And what are they going to do for flank drones when they need them?
Looks like they might need him as well, because STK is playing downstairs. He could be quite the threat if he chooses to rotate up onto the armory. Bit of utility being burnt now. Conda gets himself into an engage with Muzi, and we see another drone fall. This could be a round here for Santos. It looks as though they're going to try and stave NIP off this match point, but look at the hit points on the side of Santos. Not a great deal between Conda and STK, and Nade there gets caught inside of the magnet. Bit of a sorry shame for Julio. He still has one in his pocket. Pino looks to aggress up these white stairs as well. Just hold a bit of an angle. No drones remaining now on the side of NIP, so they really are just going to be face checking onto common spots. You can almost see that in the way that they're pushing quite slowly and quite steadily. The nade being teased there as Toxic Babe canister gets tossed out. I believe that could be his second one. Still 1 left for this final 20 or so seconds.
NIP, you just have to be careful and slow. It's a nice nade onto STK, which will give them some space, but as you say, time is waning. Pino just trying to hold the top of the white stairs here, knowing that someone at least is going to be playing in the kids' dorms. Cons gets a kill straight onto him though, so the angle no longer held. Julio coming round, but he can't survive long enough, and then the last one on the game's room window. Repel is not going to keep you alive long enough, and as you rightly predicted, Santos take this round, and once again, or at least just one step closer to saving themselves from losing. We are heading further and further towards overtime.
We haven't had one yet, Gio. I've almost been quite surprised.
We were close in the first game.
It was close on the first game, yeah, I'll give you that. But, you know, me and Tim on the broadcast, that's like, it's almost a guarantee that there's going to be some sort of overtime. We have done exceptionally well up until this point, but a lot of close games tonight, and Santos really hanging on in there. There's all the chance that they're able to take it downstairs here on Laundry. We've seen them play it a couple of times so far. If we just have a quick scan back up, I think NIP have been successful in their attempts, but it hasn't been through once of trying.
Well, there's still hope. I think the important thing here for NIP is going to be going for a different attacking approach to the freezer thing. It worked really well for them back on round number 7. I think partially because Santos weren't expecting it. It's not a particularly standard way of attacking onto this site. Yeah, sure, sometimes you get a freezer push in conjunction with a tower push or maybe even a laundry push, but not so much where that is your entire team. But then when we moved over to round number 9, it was read into a lot easier from from Santos, and they were better positioned to do it. They were disciplined in the way that they went about it, so that in the late round, they had what they needed to execute the plays that were required. I think NIP would be very, very naive to do the same thing again. So I would like to see a change. I'd like to see something different. To start off, in terms of things that are different, they've decided to bring a Jackal. So their flank watch is probably going to be more substantial this time, because they'll have a better read on where those players who are on the roam and who flank later on will be.
Plenty of drone work happening here. Moosey's just checking to see if the corridor is clear at the top of Freezer before pushing his way on in. Hatch fully reinforced as well. It's going to need to be opened by either Julio or Kamikaze. It seems as though Julio is on hatch duty. Going to get laundry hatch open first. We hear a C4 rip then? I think we potentially did. He could be in for a bit of trouble as the C4 does get tossed on out. I do have my volume at 1,000,000% for those sort of occasions, but Julio keeps himself nice and safe because it seems as though he does as well. 1 C4 down on Santos' side, and means that Julio can rotate and look to try and get open that hatch inside of Freezer as well.
If Julio's on hatch duty, I'd really like to see Kamikaze go for maybe even like the E-box wall or the site wall or something, because there's no wall denial being brought on Santos, so he might have the opportunity to do that. There's no Hunter on Santos either, because Pino just killed him, so that's already great. He's not going to be regenerating any more of those discs. He only has a maximum of 4 anyway. You can hear 1 being burned straight away as projectiles get thrown in from the freezer hatch. There's the smoke, so it looks like NIP are going for something similar and yet slightly different. Kamikaze holding on to the angle from Laundry stairs as well, just in case anyone from Santos decides to push on forward. The Pernicious smoke's thrown out to try and deter him, but he has a drone that he can use for the information instead. Just sneaking a peek in through the gap between the shield before the drone gets rid of, but Santos have already pushed somewhat forward. Is it going to be enough for NIP? Are they going to be able to take advantage?
Psycho coming up on one of his signature flanks now as kills continue to come for Pino inside of the site. Gets caught out in the Melusi and left pre-firing. Pino's in a world of hurt as he's getting pre-fired from just about every conceivable angle, but Muzi wins those and so does Pino. Psycho comes in from behind. A flawless round for NIP, and what a way to finish that game there versus Santos. NIP are going to be your winners tonight.
I said I wanted to see them do something different, and even though they still went for the freezer push, they did change it up enough to make it work. Having the angle held through from Laundry, having the presence on the tower stairs as well, it was enough to give them at the very least the information they needed so that Pino and Muzi could support each other through that push. Having the smokes too concealed a lot of their movement, and it was everything NIP needed to be able to